Hey, I'm Kay. I'm one of the co-founder of BøthOfUs AB.
I'm Emily Ryan. I am the other co-founder of Both of Us. I work as a design lead.
And I work as a project manager and a tech lead. So what we're planning to do today is to show quickly on the process, how we work with projects usually. And yeah, maybe I will share some slides for that.
Yes.
So yeah, here we are. So we as a company usually work on projects related to UN SDGs. So far we have been focusing majorly on these goals by offering the competency of technology, design, and illustration as well.
To projects that are working on projects that help solve these issues.
Yeah. So I will quickly jump into process.
Yeah, so for this project, we are going to talk a little about the process that we're going to have for this particular project, but I just want to say about our process in general that this is usually what it looks like when we start from design and end with the finished product, because then we do the development as well. And we're going to go through that a little bit quickly. So we usually start by having a workshop with the product owners to get everything on the table and find out what the problems are, what we need to focus on, what the main challenge that we need to solve is. We like to have a room full of different expertises, or virtually, which might become the case. And we also like to get inspired by existing solutions, and we sort of together we work on making a first sketch of what we should make later on. When we have a sort of sketch which we've decided on, that's deciding a path which we're going to take. It also means that we've decided we're not going to do this or this. This is what we want to test, and we have a theory that when we show this to users, we will find out whether our theory was correct or incorrect, and that is useful. So from this workshop, what usually happens is we have defined the scope very well. Like, this is the thing that we're going to redesign, or this is the flow we're going to test. And we will give that to you so that you have time to ask for changes when you have time to think about it. Then we go and create a clickable mock-up, which is a realistic design, not the finished design, but realistic enough that we can get real reactions from users. And so we show it to users, and that they tell us what they think. We can see when they test it if they're having problems with something, and we ask them questions if they're not being that forthcoming. And from that, we see how well this design is performing. And we tested on at least 5 people. We found that to be a very good number. And if possible, if they will let us, we will record these interviews so that you can see them as well. And after the interviews, we've learned a little bit about our design. Maybe we found small things that we want to tweak. Maybe we find out that our theory was incorrect and we need to change paths a little bit. But usually it is that we have a good path, but we need to make small changes. And when we've made those small changes to our design, we can test them again and see if they perform better this time, which means that we've confirmed that this is a good flow and a good usable design. And once we've confirmed that, only then we go into the real nitty-gritty of Pixel Perfect. Because if you do start out with this, chances are that you will do the wrong thing. It's much better to start out finding out what people will need, what people will respond to, and then going into all this time-consuming work. So when this is done, we create a design which will be approved by you, and we create another clickable flow so that you can feel what it will be like to have this design. And then we deliver the assets to developers. And in a situation where we would be developing this ourselves, Kay would take over as the technical project manager.
I will explain the usual process so you get the full picture. So when designers hand over assets to us, usually it's being done using Zeppelin in our case. So we take in the assets, and then the assets will be available for different platforms. And designers also create style sheets for the project, which has elements and components associated with the project. So Zeppelin is a really, really interesting tool because it provides CSS and all those kind of information. So from there, developers will take it, and then we create epics, stories, and task to form the Scrum board or sprints. So in a Scrum, there are many sprints. So a sprint can be somewhere between 1 week to 3 weeks. So at the end of each sprint, there will be a demo happening just to check that we are going in the same track always. And that's the usual process with agile sprint-based methodologies.
I think you made a good point about the asset delivery. I just want to add to that we do something called atomic design, which is that we design each component. So it could be, this is what tables look like, this is what a form looks like. So you don't need to have every single screen that you have on a website, for instance. You can have this components with the CSS that you get from Zeppelin and just the style information so that you can construct new pages as you need them.
Yep.
It's also easier to stay consistent.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So as designers, we like to review the design as it's being developed just to make sure that things are as we wanted them, saw them in our mind's eye when we designed. So we can compare the design that we made to what's being produced. Sometimes we need to adjust our idea of what this should look like just because we don't have all the technical knowledge, of course, of developers. So it's always good to have a little bit of back and forth on that. And then we maybe change the design a bit, or we ask for these changes and make tasks about these changes.
Yeah. And this is very important stage also because the designers who sit in this workshop is the one who knows exactly what's being decided initially.
What the vision is.
Yeah, what the vision
what
is.
we're going for.
Yeah, exactly. So having a design review done by that designer at later stage in the development will be really, really efficient or very helpful for the product development. So then comes the quality assurance. So quality assurance includes testing and also other type of assurance management. So we basically perform many different types of testing, like security testing, just to check if anyone could hack into the system. Third-party library integration testing, that is called as FOSS testing. And then regression, functional test, and normal load testing to see how many people can access the website at the same time, and then things like those. So once the testings are completed in that particular sprint, then the bugs or the issues will be added to the board as well. So the developers need to fix it. As you could see, there are two different stages of controlling product quality, or bringing the better quality. One is design review, that is design testing kind of thing, and then there is quality assurance, that is more like technical and functional requirement testing. So without these both, a product will never be allowed to release. So quality is one of the prime thing in the process.
Should we mention what a Scrum board is?
Yeah,
it's obvious for you. I'm just.
Yeah, I mean it's well known. So Scrum board is a very simple concept, and probably many of us know it already. So when we define the scopes, these scopes are called as. The scopes will be converted into a software product document, which is called a software requirement specification, almost like a Bible kind of thing for the product. And those are being later taken and separated into backlogs by project manager, mostly Scrum managers. And those backlogs will be like hundreds or thousands in some cases as well. Then they are being united into or linked to each other in the form of what's called as user stories or user persona stories. Then we take a limited amount or one user journey for each sprint or something like that. So we get a flow done in each development phase. And taking backlog and putting them into one specific development phase, it's called as sprints, as I explained earlier. So yeah, that's moreover how in a nutshell. So yep.
Right. So for this project, we will be focusing a lot on branding and the sort of redesign. So the workshop will be mostly about going into what is your vision, where do you see yourself, where are your competitors, and how can we be visually different from them, and also like how can we create a very good user experience.
And also, no, sorry.
I was just gonna say, so a good thing for us to start on with our workshop is to do a sort of review of the current website and go through any potential UX problems and also get inspired. But with branding, it's very important to sort of not start in visuals. It's about the vision of where your company wants to be.
Yeah.
That's the core.
And it's a whole different process than actually usability or user experience and designing, because that includes meeting with board members, founders, team members, understanding what's the company's vision, mission, and things like that.
Personality, even like.
Yeah, emotions and personality. So.
Right. So as we see in this slide, we've grayed out the development because we're not going to do this here. But we have the deliverables, which are the outcomes of each phase of UX and UI. So we start with the user testing and the wireframes, and that's a deliverable. And then we move on to the clickable mockup and the design assets, which are also deliverables.
Yeah. But if some help is needed in technical side, we could do that as well.
I know you're always ready. Well, thank you so much, Impact, for listening to us.
Yeah, thank you, and have a great day. Yeah.
Yes, please do.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.